everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We're back here on Slate, and this is a follow-up article to the article we just did on No Snapchat. Love definitely does have an age. So this is the question of pedophilia, and is it a disease or a crime? And I put my position as that it's both. As a clinician and working with those who have had pedophilic urges, who have committed pedophilic crimes and other perverse crimes, right? So we are on Slate, and this is the article that was referenced in the article that was on Human Events talking about pedophilia. So before we begin on this topic, thanks to everyone who watches me on YouTube and listens to me on iTunes. Please like and subscribe and share. And thank you again to my Patreon members. You're always sending me good articles. And again, this is a follow-up to one of the articles that one of my Patreons sent. So thank you again. So this one is out to you. And thank you for bringing this topic up to us. It's an important topic. So is pedophilia a crime or an illness? To me, it's both. We've never quite known whether child molesters should be treated as sick people or punished as criminals. I'm going to tell you both. So let's go through. We're going to go through most of this article. On Sunday, and this was written March 3rd, 2019 by Dahlia Lithwick. On Sunday, HBO premieres Leaving Neverland, the new documentary that tells the stories of two men who say they were repeatedly sexually assaulted by Michael Jackson while they were children. The new reckoning raises the persistently tricky question: should pedophilia be treated as a sickness or punished as a crime? I'm curious who this question is tricky for. And I don't know why it's always outlined as one or the other. It's both, and that's what makes this not a tricky question. We understand through the literature that it is both. But let's keep going, because I could talk about this with never reading this article. So after Jackson was charged with several counts of child molestation, Dahlia Lithwick looked into the research to try to answer the question. Initially published in January of 2004, the original, still enlightening, is reprinted below. Okay. Again, and for all the wrong reasons, we can't take our eyes off of Michael Jackson. Whether or not the allegations are substantiated, the question is in the air. Is pedophilia a disease to be treated or a crime to be punished? Yes, both. Are people who seduce minors sick or evil? Why can't there be an and? So sick, have mental illness, have biological, neurological issues, that would be under sick. Evil, there's something about evil that brings up maybe religion and morals and not necessarily ethics, right? Which muddies us up too much. You can say, we can't use I would say don't use the word evil, because lots of religious book calls a lot of things evil. We can talk more about ethic. What is ethical, right? I have a specific analyst I would love to talk about this, because she's an ethics expert. So maybe I should get her on to talk about this and even what the difference between evil, sick, and ethical. So let's read on. Our current legal and medical system blur both views. I think there'd be some bad characters in our legal and medical systems that blur both of these views. We call for the most draconian punishments. So here's one extreme, just like sick or evil is two extremes. Life imprisonment, castration, or permanent exile, precisely because we view these acts as morally heinous. They're also driven by uncontrollable biological urges. We don't see that this is controlled by uncontrollable biological urges. I haven't seen strong enough data to show this, and why this argument is made. Who cares if it's about pedophilia or anything? Take anything that they say, it's in your genetics, you have no control over it. It takes away the responsibility from the person for their actions, right? My biology made me do it. It's just another way of saying the devil made me do it, right? Same damn argument. Oh, I can't. And when people say, the religious say, the devil made me do it, they say, oh, it's because of my sinful nature that I have no control over because Adam and Eve ate the apple and were tricked. So I can't do anything about it. The devil made me do it. It's the same exact argument when they say, oh, the genetics made me do it. I have no control over this. The Big Bang made me this way. So don't punish me. This is what this is. And this is what annoys me about extreme arguments, right? And I will also say the same thing by those who say, "Oh, it's just a mental sickness," and they totally chose to do it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to say that they had complete control over it either. Come on, this is much more complicated. I wish it was just one of them, right? Because it'd be really easy, and it's not. Your past history has a lot to do with if you become a sexual offender or not. We know this. This is data. This is long-standing data we have from multiple countries. So, let's keep going with this article. If sex with children is truly the product of freely made moral choices, then we should deal with it through criminal justice systems. They're only giving you an extreme position, right? Saying, oh, they totally have full conscious control over this. No, we don't have full conscious control of anything. We're not the masters of our own home. That was one of the biggest blows psychoanalysis brought to us, and Freud specifically brought to us. One of the three major blows to the human's ego. If you guys want to look up what the other two are, it's very interesting. But if it is genetically overdetermined impulse. What does overdetermined mean? Determined means determined. There is no overdetermining. See, always be weary of the language we see in articles. I'm weary about this on leftist articles and right side articles. But if it is a genetically overdetermined impulse, so that means it's overdetermined, they have no control, they're not responsible, right? An uncontrollable urge nestled in our DNA, or the devil made me do it, then punishing pedophiles must be morally wrong. So now they're trying to bring up moral, right? This is why I say don't use the word evil, because it brings up the subjectivity of morality. We bring up ethics. Ethics is a little bit more straightforward. As science and culture increasingly medicalizes bad behavior, and this is a problem of the bad behavior being medicalized, we know this is bad science. There's good science within it, but this goes too far and becomes bad science, that every behavior you have is for a medical reason. We know that's not real science. Finding a neurological component to everything from alcoholism to youth violence, we run the parallel risk of either absolving everyone for everything or punishing criminals who are no guiltier than cancer patients. Okay. So I mentioned this before, that we can't absolve everyone for everything, right? That's one extreme. Because then no one's responsible for anything, which means you can do whatever you want and blame the devil or blame your DNA. It doesn't matter. You could just do that, right? No responsibility. Don't punish me even though I'm impulsive and don't want to be responsible, right? Here's the other side, or punishing criminals who are no guiltier than cancer patients. So this is not an apples to apples comparison. Let's think about it. Pedophilia, raping a child, is an action you take, you do, right? You have to go attack that child and rape the child. Cancer, you don't go do cancer. You don't act out cancer. Cancer happens to you, right? So this is not an apples to apples. You don't go do cancer. You go do pedophilia. You go do rape. See what I'm saying here? Think about the logic and the thought process first when you're reading these kind of articles, and then you can see the motivation and feel the induction. What are they trying to induce you with? What are they saying? How are they twisting this? Learn to think for yourself. This is how you think for yourself. Regardless of what position you have in politics or anything you're reading, you got to think. You had to understand and break this down. Don't just read an article and think you read it once and just absorb what they said that you know. You don't. So let's keep taking our time with this article. Whew, okay. And just thank you everyone who's still sticking through this. This is a tough topic, and thank you again for my Patreon member who sent this. They really did want to talk about this. Okay, so what science has revealed about the moral / medical roots of pedophilia is, of course, ambiguous. Yeah, thanks, thank you. Well, yeah, and we have a whole lot of nothing on it. We can't say, oh, we have this gene, you're a pedophile. We don't have that, right? So they tell you it's ambiguous here. And where did they say this? Precisely because we view acts as morally heinous, yet also driven by uncontrollable biological urges. You see the back and forth play. I hate that. You should hate it too, because it's just someone lying and manipulating you, right? This is the kind of talk that happens in domestic violence relationships. This exact kind of talk and exact kind of actions. What is clear is that the binary choice laid out above is an oversimplification. Thank you for saying that now. You're going to say this after most people are done reading an article. You only read a couple paragraphs. The medical community, which started to view pedophilia as a disease rather than a crime in the 19th century, so the 1800s, has amassed evidence that at least some violent and antisocial behaviors have genetic links and signposts. Oh yeah, no, we can totally agree that there is some genetics to this. But you got to remember how genes work. And I want to bring a neurologist in to really talk about this at much more depth than I can. Just because you have genes doesn't mean they are expressed. You know that? They don't have to be expressed. So just because let's say somehow they found the gene for pedophilia, doesn't mean you're going to be a pedophile. That gene has to be expressed. And how those genes would be expressed, well, that could be nurture. That would be nurture, we're going to assume, right? If we're assuming this kind of stuff. So let's keep going. But researchers have been unable to isolate a biological cause for pedophilia. Yeah, because there isn't just a biological cause for pedophilia. I don't think we'll ever find this. I would be so surprised if we find this. I'll totally change my mind when it comes to real evidence. Give me some real evidence, boy, I would change my mind on this. Or even to agree on a personality profile. Yeah, that too. We're not finding it just in personality either. Lots of different personalities are pedophiles. So that has given us the idea, the hypothesis. It's a mix. It's some kind of mix and maybe something else that we're not looking at. Not to mention the terrific confusion within the medical community in defining what this disease really involves. Yeah. What do they mean by disease? Until a few years ago, for example, the DSM-4, the Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, defined pedophilia as a disease only if the sufferer's fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. In other words, a non-impaired, remorseless pedophile was apparently perfectly healthy. Wait. In other words, a non-impaired, remorseless pedophile was apparently perfectly healthy. So technically, you're only a pedophile if you have acted out and done the action, right? Someone disagreed with me on that. Think about your disagreement. Now I'll tell you why I believe my position is correct. You're only a murderer if you've killed someone, right? You have the impulse to kill, and God, you can fantasize by murdering someone because they just piss you off. You're not a murderer. You haven't done anything. So this is where I'm going to, on the rare occasion, defend the DSM. It is not saying, in other words, that a non-impaired, remorseless pedophile was apparently perfectly healthy. Yeah, so one, there's nothing to have remorse over if you haven't done anything wrong. You don't have to have feelings of remorse for fantasizing about killing someone. The thing is, as humans, we understand that people do have remorse for their thoughts and are tortured by their thoughts. Oh, someone link for me down below or tell me there's a superhero movie. Oh my gosh, where was it Black Widow? I don't know. Black Widow has a guy tied to a chair and she finds out he's a pedophile and she reflects on it that she uses this knowledge against him to get information or something like that. I never saw it. Someone told me about this. Or maybe I saw it. Joe Rogan might have been talking about this at some point. But then she reflected on it and saw how painful it must be to have those urges and not be able to interact with them, right? So let's think about it. Those people who have not acted out, just like murderers who haven't acted out, or pedophiles who haven't acted out, they're not perfectly healthy. They're suffering. And those are the people that I say we need to help. As I said in the video before, and I'll say it in this video, we have to stop people. Say there's a train on the train tracks and the bridge is out over there. Let's stop the train before it falls off the bridge, instead of waiting for the train to fall off the bridge and make a medical bay down in the valley, right? So no, this is wrong. This is a twisting of the DSM. And I'm not a super fan of the DSM, but I don't like this kind of lie. This is making you think something that's not true. If they want to get into the medical and into the psychological of this, they better be on par and have the right thoughts and understand what this is saying. And they're not. So let's keep going. Advocates of the disease school say pedophilia is often the product of uncontrollable impulses that seem to respond to treatment, including castration, both surgical and chemical, in conjunction with monitoring and behavioral therapy. Whew. This raises at least a possibility not associated with car thieves and inside traders, that small tweaks to one's brain chemistry may neutralize the impulse to commit more crimes. And if that is the case, they contend, shouldn't we be treating that rather than punishing? No. You commit a crime, you go to jail. That's the basis of society, a good society. You know, what is the punishment? The time, the extent, you can argue all that. You commit a crime, you go to jail, then you get help for it, for the problem, right? You rape a kid, you're going to go to jail, but then we help you with that issue, right? I think that's the most sane. It gives empathy for the person as an individual, and it gives empathy to the victim and society at large, right? Putting them in jail, empathy for individual and society at large, getting the person help in jail if they want it is empathy for the person, right? And then we had to also help the victim as, again, empathy for the individual who is victimized. That is the most sane thing we can do. And I'm not going to say that we start castrating people. I don't think that's empathy. Mutilation is not empathy. I'm sure there are going to be some cases where it's almost necessary. Maybe. I don't know. Show me it. I'm open to hearing cases like that. So let's continue. Can we really call ourselves a just society if you are jailing folks for their neurochemical profile? Well, we're not jailing anyone for the neurochemical profile because we have no data for it. So this is not a real question. This is to induce you with feelings to join their position. This is their motivation for this article. In a thoughtful essay in Reason, Thomas Sassaz, sorry if I butchered your name, I don't mean to, urges that pedophilia is ultimately still a moral failure regardless of its biological roots. Means that excessive love. Bibliophilia means the excessive love of books. Does not mean stealing books from libraries. I made this argument before. If you have bibliophilia and you just read all your books, you didn't take an action that was against humanity or another person. Acting out the impulses of your bibliophilia by stealing books would be the crime. That's the difference here. You can't mix these two. So, pedophilia means the excessive sexual love of children. Love. You like the word love? Of children. It does not mean having sex with them. Okay, so I'm going to agree with this here. Pedophilia means the excessive sexual perversion, a sexual perversion towards children. And perversion is the erotic form of hatred. But it does not mean having sex with them, and that's true. You're not a pedophile until you've committed a crime, just like you're not a murderer until you commit a crime. But if you want to commit a murder or you have perverse sexual feelings and impulses towards children, you get help before you fall off the bridge. The crime, he argues, is not the psychological impulse. No, we should not be criminalized for our thoughts, but the willingness to give into it. Yes, the action is the crime. But this conclusion assumes an answer that science is still uncertain about, whether for some pedophiles the impulse to molest has become a pathology. What's your definition of pathology? If that is the case, pedophiles can't have the criminal intent necessary to want to commit a crime. And that mens rea is the cornerstone of our criminal law. I've read this a bunch of times and I've been having problems with this, and maybe someone in the comments can talk to me about this. Comment below or send me a message, or we can sit down and talk. Maybe a lawyer would be better for this. So pedophiles can't have the criminal intent necessary to want to commit a crime if the impulse is too strong. If intent comes, I would imagine if you're so impulsive that you have to do something, it is you're intending to do something because of your impulses. That sounds like intent. I don't see how impulse and intent is any different from each other. But let me know about criminal law, because I come from the side of psychoanalysis. So assume for a moment that we are sophisticated enough to embrace this ambiguity, to accept the likelihood that the reality is complicated, and that both chemistry and morality are at work in the creation of sexual predator. Well, if it's chemistry and morality, they go to jail for the moral wrong they did to society and someone else, so they're punished. And since if we say it's just chemistry, which means they have no responsibility, but then you can't do anything about it. But I'm gonna say I would say it's chemistry, biology, and mental health, which means upbringing and things like that. Then you get them help. Cool. Studies by Stanford University neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky suggest that mental illness really falls along a continuum, that criminals are not sick or evil, but some intricate combination of both. Okay, what then is the moral and proper approach to this? I've said it 20 times. I'm going to stop saying it, right? In 1987, Robert Wright explored this choice/illness dichotomy as it relates to alcoholism in the New Republic. And I want to point this out for just about every debate you see. They make it a dichotomy. Jeez. I don't know many dichotomies in life. A few. But it's not black and white with this. It is not just biology or not just upbringing. This is nurture-nature debate all over. Let me just keep reading. I'm going to say the same thing over and over again. So Wright's ultimate conclusion was that it is a mistake to label behavior, even a behavior with some biological and genetic determinants, as a disease, because it ultimately means giving up on the concept of volition altogether. According to Wright, some alcoholism is a product of a complicated moral soup of environmental and biological factors, since biology may, maybe, possibly, we don't know, play a role, but not the only or even predominant role in these behaviors. We are better off holding people responsible for their actions than not. Otherwise, he argues, things fall apart. Yeah. Okay. That sucks, but yeah. This things fall apart approach has its attractions. It suggests that in a world of increasing casual complexity, what's casual complexity? What? Morality must remain all the more unequivocal. The question then is whether this pragmatic solution is also the ethical one as the stakes rise. Boom, finally we get to ethics. This is the better way to understand this. Ethics. Look, it's not ethical to rape someone else or a child. That's why it's a crime. Right? That's the crime side. Let's think about the ethics. It's not ethical to not help someone who's has problem with a mental and or biological problem. So you help them. I don't know how to make this simpler. The problem is that pedophilia, unlike alcoholism, has one real and tangible victim for every incident. Yeah, if alcoholics damage another person's life with every drink, the parallel might hold. Yeah, it's not the same. But if statistics from the National Institute of Mental Health are right, and the average molester of boys will have 150 victims before apprehension, then the social costs of a single incident are astronomical. Yeah, it is. If the repercussions of the act argue for holding the perpetrator morally responsible, regardless of their level of agency, then the seriousness of the punishment pulls in the other direction. Holding alcoholics morally responsible for their actions has predominantly insurance and employment consequences. Oh, okay, yeah. Holding a child molester responsible for his actions means a lifetime of incarceration or monitoring, unemployment, and shaming. Yeah, and for everyone, if it's true up here, for every one pedophile, there's 150 victims on average. That's a big cost. And they should be held responsible for their crimes. I mean, unless you're saying like, yeah, the hell with the victims. We can't do that. Offender registries are certainly an alternative to other forms of like vigilantism, okay? But the practical effect is a whole subclass of offenders with whom nowhere to live or work. That's a serious problem. I agree with this. What if someone was a pedophile, was a murderer, whatever, and they do their time to society, they've gotten better, and they want to get a job? What do you do? That's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to talk to someone about it. What are the different options? Let's keep going. If science someday proves us wrong and pedophiles are wholly victims of their own biology, we'll have victimized them twice and called it justice. It will never be wholly of our own biology. This is a non-issue. This is a non-issue. If I had to gamble, critical thought, all the research, this will always be a non-issue because it will never be wholly biology. There are, it's generally agreed, 4 basic rationales for punishment: revenge, to rehab, deterrence, and incapacitation. Okay. If we accept the mixed causation theory that pedophilia is part disease and part crime, we can say, hey, I'm even cool with saying it's fully disease and fully crime, then almost none of these rationales are served. Why should we get punishment as revenge, rehab, deterrence? Lifetime recidivism rates show that rehab alone has not been very effective for sex offenders, and that's true. And we know, so we have the wrong type of rehab. That piece is not good enough, right? So that doesn't mean throw it away. That means change it. And we know that deterrence is unlikely when most offenders are able to get away with it. That's true. Multiple acts before apprehension, deterrence doesn't work. Revenge makes sense only when rational choices lead to the commission of the crime, which is in no doubt when one's neurochemistry may be running the show. No. Which leaves only... yeah. Sorry, I'm having a problem with the article a little bit. Okay. Now, a lifetime of involuntary confinement was a good idea for carriers of the Black Plague, who were guilty of no more failures at all. But this raises the practical financial component of imposing complete moral responsibility on pedophiles. Our jails are teeming with sex offenders, and knowing what we do about recidivism rates for pedophiles, recent studies show that they are lower than previously believed in the short term, but still hovering at 50% over a 25-year career, quote unquote. We must choose between lifetime involuntary confinement or the cost of ongoing monitoring. Due to prison overcrowding, child molesters are released each day into communities that no longer care whether pedophiles are sick or evil, so long as they are thrown away. As long as they throw away the key. The appeal of the crime punishment model is that it can tailor the punishment to the crime. A one-time molester is as sick as a serial predator under the disease theory. So they can be just as sick, but their crime would be different, right? But the traction of the disease model is that it assumes both that there is a cure and that the perpetrators wish to be cured. Ah, this is half a half truth. So the traction of the disease model. So this is getting closer to the medical and the mental health model. Is that it assumes that both there is a cure. Yeah, we're going to assume that there is a cure to look for a cure. That's a hypothesis, right? We're looking for cures, and that the perpetrators wish to be cured. No, we don't assume this whatsoever. Most of the time, we know that people don't want to be cured of what ails them. This is like getting close to exclusively people don't want to be cured of what ails them. We can see this in things that are nothing near pedophilia, like smoking. Do you really want to be cured of smoking? Most of the time, no. Smoking, drinking, anxiety, depression. We really don't want to get out of that. Why? There's something underneath that's really the problem. We know anxiety, depression, smoking, alcoholism, those are symptoms of something deeper. And this could be true of pedophilia also. But the assumption that the perpetrators wish to be cured, that's not an assumption we should make. Why would you ever make that assumption? That's not nearly scientific. That's not even thoughtful. It's not even thoughtful. There are just bad people out there who wish to do bad. Can that be changed? Yes. But don't ignore their badness or their unethicalness. There is a danger to assuming that the latter is true. It's been the basis for the states who adopted mandatory civil commitment laws following the Supreme Court's holding in 1997's Kansas versus Hendricks that the most dangerous child molesters can be held involuntarily after their sentences are served, so long as they're receiving treatment. The problem is that often the treatment they receive is not sufficient or effective. Yes, pedophiles aren't treated very well, even in the mental health sphere. They're treated like trash, just like they treat you like in prison. They're not helped. And that's a crime. I think that's unethical, and I would not be against that. It's not a crime, a punishable crime, but it's unethical. But since this is quote-unquote treatment and not quote-unquote punishment, neither the public nor the Constitution is offended, says the court. That's a problem. The danger of the treatment model is the danger posed to a society that has sedated and medicated an entire population into a law-abiding stupor. But the crime punishment model is just as hopeless. The promise of an ever-growing number of pedophiles either languishing in jails we cannot afford or using jails for sleepovers between crimes is quite possibly a worse nightmare than the treatment option. Yeah. Perhaps the best solution is to a problem with hybrid causes is a hybrid solution. Yeah. Studies generally show that treatment is better than no treatment, and it's hardly coddling criminals to institute a program of close supervision, drug therapy, and counseling. If science is proved even 10% right and nature has some hand in creating a pedophile, lifelong imprisonment solves only one immediate problem: warehousing dangerous citizens. But it raises a more immediate problem. We may be punishing sick people who could have been helped. All right, thanks for following me on this long article and really tough article. Let me know if I said anything that you guys don't agree with or I messed up. This is kind of a little bit emotionally charged with me. But I'm going to have to tell you that I agree with the ending of this article. I don't agree with the sentiments of the article. But I like the questioning of the article, even if they're questioning it and they're more... this is Slate.com, so they're a leftist organization. So even though they're coming from the leftist side of this, and I'm definitely coming from the right of them. I don't know if I'm coming from a centrist or a right. No, I'm coming from a centrist point of view. I'll be honest about it. But I agree with them that. But this whole thing that raises a more immediate problem. We may be punishing sick people that could have been helped. And I agree with that. There's a lot of people who do things even though it could have been prevented, right? murderers, rapists, those in depressions, those who are committed suicide, those who are in elongated mourning. I mean, this is a lot of reason why I reach out to people. I work with communities. Like one community that I work with is police officers. Police officers have a really tough job. You got to give respect. And I know the media craps on police officers. All police officers are bad and they just kill minorities. And, okay. Let's get away from that for a moment. Think about an individual police officer. I grew up knowing police officers, NYPD. Look, they go through they have an awful job. And we say the same thing for firefighters, doctors, nurses, EMTs. The list can go on. And we had to take care of them. And we can see, and I can say, hey, look, a police officer acts out, right? They shoot someone they shouldn't have. How come? And we can take the same debate that we're doing with pedophiles. Are they just genetically programmed to kill people? And that's why they took that job? Or was it a mental health state? Something was wrong and we could have prevented it. We may be punishing sick people who could have been helped. So when we take a logic, an idea, and want to place it in one place and say it's true, we have to place it everywhere, right? So just a little bit inside myself. This is why I work with police officers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, EMTs. There's a lot of pain in people, and this is what I've seen also when working with pedophiles and those who have committed sexual crimes. It's awful. Like, there's not excusing them. I'm all for you commit the crime, you're gonna be punished, and that's appropriate. That's taking responsibility. But as tough as it is, you have to look past all your countertransference feelings, right? All your feelings about that, and learn who this person is and understand why things are happening. To maybe you can't help them, that specific person, right? Maybe they're too far gone, but you can stop it elsewhere. And that's what all of us should do when we're talking about any of these kind of things. So this is what I'm agreeing with when it comes to the Slate article. I'm agreeing with the question. I'm not agreeing with their position. I'm agreeing with the question, and I appreciate their far left leaning article. I appreciate it because it taught me more about their arguments. So I'm not straw manning them, and we shouldn't straw man left side or right side arguments, mattering on what position you hold. So hey, thank you again for my Patreon member who sent me this article. I really do appreciate it. This has been a hard article to read, and I hope it gave everyone new thoughts. The links down below to this article, to my Patreon, to YouTube, and to iTunes, so you can subscribe there and share. And I'll catch you all next time.